Welcome, y'all. It's Wes with DIY Food Plot Pro. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's episode, we're talking about deer randomly moving through your property and how do we hunt where deer are randomly going all over the farm, and how do we make these properties better. You can see behind me, we've got an area kind of flagged off for some TSI that we're going to bring you here in a couple of weeks. This entire area is going to be made into a bedding area, and we're going to really go through the details and steps involved in turning this property into the best property in the neighborhood. But today we're going to talk about how do we predict and what do we do when deer are randomly moving across the property. So I go to a lot of clients' properties throughout the wintertime consulting on those properties. And I'm trying to help those property owners get set up where they have a better chance at killing mature bucks regularly every single season. So one of the first things that we do is we walk the farm and we're looking at trails and we're looking at scrapes and we're looking at rubs and bedding areas and food plots and how all these things combined into making their farm what it is today. How do we make deer that are moving through these woods in a random fashion where there's maybe 7 or 8 different trails going through here? There really is on this farm. How do we make this movement more predictable for us as hunters? And so we can do this multiple different ways. We're really going to dive deep into this later on in the video, but the first couple of ways that we can do this is with terrain features, right? So if you're in the mountains, we already have natural pinch points, natural areas that deer are funneling through. Also, water is a huge source for this right here, funneling deer into areas. There's a lot of areas that are on the edge of lakes, have large ponds on their properties, and these areas also funnel deer naturally. But there are a tremendous amount of farms that I visit that don't have any of these natural land features, such as the mountains or large lakes, or bodies of water that the deer will go around, or say large ag fields even that the deer will go around. So how do we make these deer move in a place in a way that we have the best chance of harvesting these mature bucks out of these stand locations? The very first thing that I like to do is obviously I walk the entire property, kind of get a feel for how the deer are using it, where are they bedding at, where are they going to food at, and then what I like to do is start and I set my stand locations. The stand location is so key in harvesting mature bucks. For a great stand location, you have to have quality access. What that means is we have to be able to enter and exit without spooking deer, right? So if we have our stand right on the edge of a bedding area, the chances of us spooking deer extremely high. If we back that stand off 100 yards off the bedding area, much better access to be able to get in and get out without bumping those deer that are in the bedding area that we're wanting to hunt. Another thing is, when we're setting these farms up, is we have to have somewhere to throw our wind. I think this is one of the biggest points that gets missed from the overall deer hunters is maybe we do have access to this stand. Maybe we can get in and out cleanly. We know exactly where the deer are bedding at. We know exactly where they're feeding at. But where do we throw our wind when we're on stand? If we don't have a good area to throw our wind on the stand, we are boogering somewhere on our farm. So what I'm saying by that is when we set these properties up, we always set these things up on the outside. So if we're boogering anything, we're boogering the neighbors, right? Because our wind's constantly blowing to the outside of the property, unless you have a major land feature in the middle, like we were talking about earlier with a lake or something that you can throw your scent onto that lake. But we always use the outside of the property. So when we start setting these stand locations up, we're constantly looking for areas where we can throw our wind that's a low deer number area. So what I mean by that is maybe an open ag field generally is going to be a low deer number area, right? So we can throw our wind out there. We would never want to set in a bedding area where our wind was blowing like this, blowing right to the bedding area for that exact reason. So we're always looking for areas to set these stands up on that we have a great spot to throw our wind and to be clean while we're hunting. I set those two things up first, a good access stand and a good place to throw our wind. Those are the keys to a great stand location. One of the biggest issues I see when I go visit landowners is we find all the sign and then the landowner wants to hunt right there, and rightfully so. You go into an area like we are right now and there's literally 7 or 8 rubs right in around here, right? And we actually do have access to this spot, so we can hunt this spot. We will be hunting this spot next year. A lot of times these areas are deep in the woods. There is no way to access it without going 300 or 400 yards into your woods, and there's no perimeter roads being able to be used to be able to access those stand locations. So we go in, we bump deer every single time we go, and before long the stand is completely spent. The deer that are using it nocturnally, and the chances of you killing a mature buck there outside of the rut are slim to none. So one of my favorite things to do when I'm out consulting is to make a artificial pinch point on the property. I love doing it because it works like an absolute charm. What do I mean by that? You can use many different tools to steer deer into an area that you want. All right, let's say right here, we got food plot behind you here, and there's literally 7 or 8 trails in this 250 yard stretch that goes this way, right? Other than hunting the outsides of this, how do we make sure that we've got a bow range? Now, if we're rifle, we can cover half of it. On south wind days, we can hunt here. North wind days, we can hunt here. We cover half of it, and we're in pretty decent shape. But what about with a bow? Because it's much tougher when we got to get them at 20, 25 yards. How do we funnel these deer down into an area that we can get a good bow shot on? We're taking 7 or 8 different trails here, and we're going to combine them into one. So there's multiple different ways that I recommend you can do that. One way is hinge cutting. Hinge cutting works really, really well when you have a lot of trees about this size in your woods, because you can hinge cut those down and you can form a natural barrier, a natural block, where you're blocking deer from entering and exiting certain locations. The problem with that is most places don't have a tremendous amount of these size trees. They just don't. That hackberry is about the perfect size tree right there, because you can lay that over. It will block a large area, and it will do it for a long period of time. But the problem is a lot of places don't have a whole bunch of those trees around. Some places they do, some places they don't. We can also fall trees, and we can fall medium-sized trees on top of each other to create a block and block those deer. Another thing that I like to recommend is a fence. One of the spots that we've hunted for years is an area where a cattle farmer used to have cattle in this food plot. He has a 5 or 6 strand barbed wire fence. We asked him if we could cut the fence, and he said no, because if I ever put cattle back in there again, I don't want to have to fool with fixing the fence. No problem, totally understand. Right, the fence is about neck high. Deer could easily jump over it if they wanted to. So what did we do to enhance that spot and make that a good bow spot? That spot is probably 200 yards long. A bunch of random trails just where they were jumping the fence all over it. What did we do to enhance that spot? A, we made a little travel corridor on both sides to make that easy for them to access. And then B, what we did is we took the second wire, and we wrapped it over the first. And we took the third wire and we wrapped it under the fourth. We made a section that easily deer could basically just hop through, because they're only having to jump through the bottom section at that point. And it was a deer mecca right in there, and we killed a lot of good bucks right off of that fence opening. Those are great areas that we can key in on these properties and really try to funnel these deer down to an area where these mature bucks will be cruising through. I always tell my clients is make sure that your stand is not on the edge of where that opening is, right? That opening is a natural funnel. It is an area that we are pinching deer down into. We do not want that to feel like a trap to those whitetails. We want that to feel like a big opening that they don't even realize that they're trapped on both sides. So we don't go in there and we make this a 3-foot opening. We make this opening 20, 25 feet wide, to where they feel very comfortable going in and around this area, and we do not put our stand location directly on the tree that is making the funnel. We back off 15, 20 yards to the side, and we have a shot at this open funnel when that mature buck passes through. These are just some things that we look at when we're trying to funnel deer down. This will pull deer right into your area for an easy bow shot. If this is something that you're interested in, you should definitely give it a try on your farms. I've got a website set up, www.DIYFoodPlotPro. You can go there, you can view our products and some of the things that we have going on for the 2025 season is posted on there. So if that's something that interests you, you can go to www.DIYFoodPlotPro.com. Thank you so much for watching. Y'all smash that like and subscribe button.